Kaiju, turtles, Dragon Ball, and more. It's Steven's Toy Reviews.
Hey there, collectors. It's going to be Steven here, and welcome to a review of the Bring Arts Cloud from Final Fantasy VII Review. Yes, this is going to be my first Bring Arts figure, and thanks to the folks at BBTS, I'm able to make this review happen. So if you are interested in picking this figure up or any others, you can head on over to the link in the description and you can check them out. Now, Cloud is one that I have been interested in, not only because, Smash Brothers display, right? We all like that, I think, in today's day and age, but also because Final Fantasy VII, it's quite frankly one of the most iconic video games of all time. But with this figure in particular, there have been a lot of folks who have really, truly been looking forward to get this. And there have been some murmurings in the community about something to do with the legs and the hips and so on. Now, with that, I'll say, I took a look at this, and I'm very happy to say I think I may know what's going on here. So, let's take a look to see whether or not Cloud is going to be worth adding to your collection, and keep in mind he's going to be about $130. So for Cloud here, I'm going to have to say, when it comes to the looks, what can you say is not borderline amazing with this figure? Nailing down a specific look, I'm going to have to say that this is going to be very much so closer to the classic Final Fantasy VII design. This isn't necessarily going to be from any of the remake related media or Advent Children, at least not to me. This is going to be sort of a realistic interpretation of Cloud as it went back to the original game, if that makes sense. You know how sometimes when we think about like older video games and we're thinking about how something looked, and we're like, yeah, in our head, that's how this looked. That's how this Cloud at least portrays to me. Not pixelated and with a whole bunch of polygons. I think I'm communicating the right idea. When all is said and done, though, I think Cloud has some fine muscle definition. You can see the folds in his pants. He has wrinkles in his shirt. We don't have just one color for the hair. The printing for the face is fantastic. I mean, everything on Cloud is great. I'm just basically filling in the time here. In terms of looks, Cloud is fantastic, and it is going to be his strongest point. All right, Cloud looks great. How does he move? There are some parts which are great, and honestly, I think they're up to industry standards. There are other parts where, unfortunately, not as good as they could be, but I do want to tell you about a workaround that I think I found that may help you out if you are thinking about picking up Cloud. So, first and foremost for the neck, the head, how it all attaches in. You're basically, if you take a look just under the hair, you're going to be able to see that the head plugs into the neck joint on a ball joint, so Cloud can kind of bob all around. And then there's going to be a hinge, and we can twist and turn. So basically the standard sort of import style neck joint that you're going to have with, like, let's say a Figma, some SHF. So everything looks good. We can rock it back and forth, spin it all the way around. No big deal there. All right, the shoulders. So you'll notice that there's not a bicep swivel cut, but he is cut. Anyway, so we do have the shoulders where we do have a ball joint. We can spin the arms around. No big deal, right? Okay, well, except for when we come over here to this arm because of the way that everything is sculpted. So because of all of the nice belts and all of the pads that Cloud is going to have, the left arm is a little bit more restricted than the right. So just keep that in mind whenever you are moving Cloud around. You are going to have to get a little bit creative when you do so. So you can still work to get that full range of movement. You're just going to have to acknowledge that you're going to have to work with the sculpt limitations. Now, as I like to move down, we do have the shoulder pat here, which is going to be on a hinge, so it can move in and out, and on a peg, so this way you can spin it around and get it to be in the wrong direction if you should so choose it to be. So you can, it's an RPG, right? You can pose Cloud however you want. Now, we do have a hinge, so we can move the arms down. And again, if you want to pose it one way or pose it another, this will pop off, which will be helpful. But we can't really get a full T-pose like that out of the left arm. Okay? Now, that plugs down in on a peg, and we can actually get the bicep swivel here. we get a little bit of a swivel there. And since there is going to be a ball joint where the shoulder plugs in, we can get a little bit of movement forward and back. Elbows, we have a single hinge. And as you can see, we get a little bit more than 90 degrees. But the interesting thing here is that since there is a peg where he plugs into the bicep and the forearm, we do get a little bit more movement for a pseudo bicep swivel, if you will, as well as a forearm swivel. You can see that the forearm is swiveling there. For the wrists, both of them, we do have a hinge that plugs into the base, a peg that plugs into the base for a swivel. We do have a hinge for forward and back, and then the hands, when they don't drop out of mine, they plug in on a peg, so they swivel around as well. So you can see we have hinges like that, and then you're going to have to turn the hand, so this way you can get a hinge in a different direction. For the ab crunch, the torso joints on mine are tight, but not like deathly tight. You can see we got that ball joint here. And moving around. Now, I am purposely going to take some of the parts here for Cloud apart to show you how everything kind of works under the hood. And then we're going to reassemble Cloud, okay? So this is also going to be helpful when you get Cloud out of the box because he does have the protective plastic, so this way there's no paint rub, okay? So we do have the hip connection system here, which is going to be very important. So that whole lower portion is going to be on a ball joint. As you can see, rocks around. And then we have the hip connection. Yes, this is the hip connection. It's going to be on the old pull-down style hips that those who have collected figure arts for a while know exactly how this works, okay? Now, does this work as well as it should? Not exactly, and I'll show you how, where, what, when, why, so on and so forth. Just got to put the belt back on. Got to put this back on. Now, I'm going to demonstrate with this leg in particular. Okay. Well, let me take this off first. So if we are using this as our example, an issue that I've seen a lot of folks have had is that when they go to get Cloud to kick forward, no real problem. Back, no real problem. Pull down. Oh, see, there you go. That's the issue. The figure and the joint pops off. Okay. Let's do that in a bit more slow motion. Okay. If you look for contact purposes, the actual socket moves in to the hip joint. So there are some who have loose legs and they like to pop off, but not particularly like this. And you can see why that's going to be an engineering flaw. Now you say, oh, Stephen, you have it angled. Nope. That's just how it is. So as you can see, we have ball jointed hips. Here's what you can do. Because the other way, not quite. So it's an interesting conundrum there. So the point being, let me go ahead and just reassemble Cloud real quick. Point being here is we do have a design issue, but you can work with it and make it fixed. I did apply some pledge, because I still have some, to the right leg because it was falling off. And it was working, no problem. What I will say is if you do have the leg falling off issue, I would make sure that you have, I think it's called Kiki's joint fixer somebody made, or you do have Pledge floor polish with Future, or you have Crystal, or you have clear top coat nail polish for acrylic. It'll work just fine. So anyway, if you want to get Cloud to do the like leg off to the side split thing, one thing that you can do is you can kind of get his leg off to the side like that, and then there is a thigh swivel. And you can get Cloud to so you can get it. Yeah, boy. So you can get his leg to go out to the side like that. You can. You just have to be a little creative. Is that on the collector to do? I don't really know. Because when you have the legs that pop off, because of the way that the hips pull down, to give Cloud just that little bit more movement, it can be a bit of a pain. So that is a real long explanation to talk to you about the hips. Now, that being said, if you do have an issue with your hips, right? You do have like a legitimate issue, there's a joint that breaks, whatever. My contact at Big Bad Toy Store has informed me that, again, a legitimate issue, reach out to them with your order information and they will take care of you. Knee, single hinge, but look at that range of movement. This is the part where we get into the debate about single versus double hinges. And when you have effectiveness like this, I think it works pretty well. When we go down to the feet, we do have swivels, so this way we can spin the foot around. We have hinge, forward and back. And then we have a toe hinge, which, ooh, there you go. I almost want to say it's like a Kingdom Hearts Goofy moment, but then I'm like, isn't Kingdom Hearts just Final Fantasy? Anyway, so Cloud's articulation. It's all right. It's pretty solid in some spots. In others, it's definitely older, and it feels that way. Is it going to be for everyone? Absolutely not. But if you are willing to work with it and you have some patience, you can get Cloud into some fun poses. Okay, hopefully the articulation explanation was just fine and dandy enough for you, and you sort of get an idea of what you may be coming across when you purchase Cloud, okay? All right, so for accessories, it's going to be rather short, sweet, and to the point here. We do get a few extra hands. We get the Buster sword. We do get a support stand with an extra claw, and that would be about it. There's going to be one extra part for the sword, but let's talk. So first, I'm going to go ahead and get the support stand out of the way. So the support stand, this is going to be very similar to those who do collect import action figures. We do have the 3-point of articulation with a hinge stand here. There is going to be, when you go to bend it back, it's going to block for that. But it does have sort of the collapsible feature here, which is really, really nice. I have not really seen other support stands that go to this degree. The base is somewhat small, so if you are maybe looking to use this for other figures, make sure that it is going to support weight and balance-wise. When you go to put this in, there is going to be a larger tip and a smaller tip. Smaller tip goes in the base. You can use any of the holes. And like I said, we do get 2 claws. The only thing about the 2 claws is that we only get one support arm, right? Now, with that being said, there are screws, as you can see, that are used for the support system. If you feel that something is too tight, if you feel that something is too loose, get yourself a Phillips head screwdriver and you can take care of it. This claw is basically intended to go around Cloud's waist or any other part of his body that will be a good support for him to go in the air. Or otherwise, support is good to go. Hands. So you can see that he comes with fists, but taking a look at the extra hands that Cloud is going to come with, we do have splayed hands, left and right, and aside from the fists, we do get weapon holding hands for his Buster sword, right? So you can see here, I've got one fist and one weapon holding hand because I already got the others on Cloud. Okay, there we go. Pretty short, sweet, and to the point. So for swapping hands, I pretty much showed you already how that it is going to be done, but let's still just go ahead and do a quick reminder here. You pop the hand off, there you go, and you pop the hand back on. Okay, for the sword, right? Pretty nice, straightforward, and simple. Gonna show you some up close and personal pictures, but here's what it looks like when we maybe are just taking it out of the box and so forth, except for the peg. I'm going to explain the peg to you here in a second, okay? There we go. Now, when we are looking to have Cloud hold it, you're just going to get the weapon holding hand, and there's no funny business like removing the handle or a pommel or anything. You just make sure that the blade side is not facing him, but yeah, you can just twist that. And there you go. Cloud's holding it, okay? There we go. Now, neat. This is something that some folks have missed, because I almost missed it as well. I actually did some reviews stuff with another figure line where this piece looked very familiar to that. Okay, on Cloud's back, you're going to have this little peg. You pull it out. This, for that reason, may be difficult to find once it falls off. Oh, see, there it is. Okay, this is not going to support it. In the box, you will get a bigger peg. It looks like this. Okay, mine fell out of the box, and the carpet monster ate it. You know, the mythical carpet monster that we all have, who just likes to eat small action figure parts. That's going to go in one of the two holes on the sword. And then you just pop that in on his back, and you are good to go. And that's pretty much going to be it for the accessories. So let's go ahead and do a quick gallery of some pictures, so this way you can see maybe how those accessories are used for Cloud. Now, with the design issue with the hips, that can come into play when you're kind of thinking of some fun poses for Cloud and using some of the accessories. But once you sort of get the feel for how things do move, when it comes to taking pictures, you can get a better idea of what is or isn't possible. It will require some patience to get Cloud into some of those better, more fun action poses, but nevertheless, if you really want to put your mind to it with what you have, you can get some neat shots of a character who's mostly stationary in a battle pose in an RPG, which I think is pretty fun. But what I think that the big takeaway here is you can give the sword to Kong, right? So there you go. Okay, all right. Let's go ahead and save one last thing for the end and now move on over to the last part, the size comparison. So this way you can see how big Cloud is going to be with some other figures you just might have. So he's going to be slightly under the 6-inch mark. I would argue maybe 5.5. So, you know, on the smaller end of the average like import figure you may get. I think he'll actually blend in well nicely with most of your action figures that you're going to have. So if you're building a Smash Brothers display, congratulations, this one will work just fine. Buy now, skip, or wait for a deal. When it comes to the looks, Cloud is fantastic. They really put in the effort to go the extra mile to have the sculpt look great. Paint applications, the number of at least very, very high. And the articulation is experimental, and I don't necessarily think it lands on the correct mark, and it won't for everyone. However, if you are having a legitimate issue which needs to be corrected, again, BigBadToyStore will support anyone who has an issue that needs to be fixed. When it comes to accessories, in the source material, there are going to be different sorts of attacks and different swords and so on that Cloud could probably have, and there are different emotions, admittedly minimal, that Cloud could express from the games, but we do only have the default normal face plate. So for accessories, Cloud is going to be pretty light. For MSRP, I don't necessarily think that this is going to attract everyone to make the purchase. I will say that if you are a diehard Final Fantasy VII fan, then this is going to be a nice purchase for you. If you just like to maybe fiddle around with Cloud, maybe you want to throw him into a Smash Brothers display, or just simply have a nice 6-inch-ish Cloud action figure of the more so classic design. Otherwise, I'm not sure if this one's necessarily going to be for everyone. Now, that being said, I don't think it's a bad purchase myself. My favorite? No. But I do find myself enjoying fiddling around with this one. I will say for the final thought on this review, there is an NFT feature of the initial production run, I believe, not with any subsequent reissues. I will not be covering it beyond that statement.